I am Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. Today is Shiva Asr Tammuz, the 17th day of Tammuz. This is one of the 4 fast days mandated by the Torah. This day in history marks the time that it's the beginning of the 3-week period called Bein Hamatzarim, between the difficult straits, the close things. It marks the time that the Romans breached the walls of Jerusalem, put it under siege. Jerusalem was under siege, leading up to the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. And the first Beis Hamikdash was also destroyed right about Tisha B'Av. So this whole period is for the mourning of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, there are a number of questions that we ask. First of all, I've entitled this little lesson, Bein Hamatzarim, the planting the seeds of Mashiach. Before we can talk about how we plant the seeds of Mashiach, we need to first ask ourselves a number of questions. First of all, we're mourning the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Why are we as Jews mourning something that happened so many years ago? What is the desired result of our mourning? Are we mourning just for something that happened long ago, something that's destroyed, or does it have a message for today? When we're crying, these are times when we cry over the Beis Hamikdash. We cry now on this fast day of Shiva Asr Tammuz, leading into Tisha B'Av, a day of great crying. What is this crying? Are we crying tears of sorrow, or are we crying tears of hope? Finally, how do we plant the seeds for the coming of the Mashiach now? I'm going to talk about these things. So the first question is asked by many of them before Shem, and also by the Nativot Shalom. And he says, he asks the same question. He says, Jews celebrate holidays. And holidays, every holiday that a Jew celebrates has a relevance to today. We're not just talking about historical events. They may have started as historical events, but they have a relevance today. And certainly he asks, what is the tafkid? What is the purpose of this mourning? He says it doesn't make sense to mourn over something that is no longer. Because the Jewish people don't mourn over something that is not in this world. They only talk about things that are connected to the present and the future. But we see with regard to Yerushalayim, with regard to Jerusalem, with regard to the Beis Hamikdash, it says, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yamini. If I forget Jerusalem, let me forget my right hand. What does that mean? Obviously, if the Pasuk is telling us that we can't forget Jerusalem, and it's the same as forgetting your right hand, what are we learning from this? And what we are learning from this mourning of the Beis Hamikdash, this mourning period, is that during this period, we are intensifying our longing and desire for the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. He says, he quotes Rabbi Mikuvrin, who says, the worst thing that a person can do is to be satisfied with what is now. to accept the status quo. He quotes the Ramach of Slonim, who says, when Paro's daughter saw the basket and heard the basket in the Nile River where Moses was, and she heard the cry, and what did she say? The pasuk says, "Vatirahu," she saw v'hine nar bocher, the child was crying. Vatomer miyalde hu'ifrim zed. She said this was from the Jewish children. How did she know that? Shemabechiyaso hakira shehu Yehudi. From his cry, she recognized that he was a Jew. Ki rasa shebocha bechi shel tikva, because she recognized that this was a cry of hope, a cry of tikva. When we're crying for the Beis Hamikdash, we're not crying for what has happened in the past. We're crying for right now, for the fact that we have not rebuilt the Beis Hamikdash. We have not brought about Mashiach by our actions. That's what we're crying for. This is a cry, not of sorrow, but a cry of hope. We talk about planting. When you plant something, there's several stages in the planting. You first have to till the ground. And after you till the ground, you then put a seed in the ground. You then water it. And what happens to the seed? The seed ultimately disintegrates almost completely. And then it's from that disintegration that the seed starts sprouting again. And the Nativot Shalom refers to this as the kusta de chiyusa, the spark of life that is left in it. We are left without a Beis Hamikdash, but we have a kusta de chiyusa. We have this spark of life where we can plant. We can plant by our actions. And what are the actions that can bring about the Beis Hamikdash right now in our day? How do we make this planting loom? Make this planting grow. There's an interesting statement in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis. Quotes the pasuk from the prophet Zechariah. Ko amar Hashem tzavakot tzum haravi v'tzom harishi, referring to the four fasts that are mentioned, including Shiva Asher Tammuz. Dama Rav Chana bar Bizna Amar Rav Shimon Chasida. Why is it written v'tzom hashvi, v'tzom ha'asiri, that this fast day, Yeh lebeis Yehuda, shall be for the house of Judah, l'sason u'lesimcha, for joy and happiness. So on one hand, it says Korelu Sason. On one hand, it's calling it Sason and Simcha, joy and gladness. And when does that happen? It says Bizman Shiyeh Shalom, Yeh l'Sason l'Simcha. When there is Shalom, when there is peace between ourselves and our Maker, when there is peace between ourselves and our fellow man, when we are fulfilling the opposite of what happened during the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. The second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed for sinas chinam, for hatred that had no basis, no reason for it. We have to replace that with a havas chinam, love, free love, not dependent on anything, just loving every human being, every one of us, loving one another. And then he goes on to say in the Gemara, it says, Ein shalom tzom. If you don't have shalom, then you have tzom. Then you have fast days. Then you have difficult times that will require you to fast and scream out to God. We are living in difficult times now. We're living in the most horrible pandemic that anybody can recall, at least in modern history. We have to cry out to God for help. But it's not enough to cry out to God for help. What did God say to Moses at the Red Sea when everybody was screaming, what's going on? The Egyptians are trapping us here. He says, Ma titzak elai. Why are you crying to me now? This is a time for action. Do. This is a time for us to act. This is a time for us to work on ourselves and bring shalom to everybody. Thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a meaningful fast. We have another 2 hours or more in Israel to fast. I wish everybody a meaningful fast so that we can truly bring about Mashiach, rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. Shalom, shalom.